Okay, so I have spent a couple of days off camera, just kind of working through the weekend, coming out here doing a few hours at a time, and I'm at some different points here. So I started out by actually knocking down high spots, any weld splatter with some 80 grit flap disc on my grinder. Then I moved to some 120 to kind of smooth things out, and ultimately went over absolutely everything with a wire wheel. That'll do some final polishing, knock some of that weld splatter off, knock the last of the rust and all off. Now with fresh steel like this that I just picked up, this actually has a really nasty black oily coating on it, and I've got to get that off before I go into any painting. Now back here behind, you've seen that I have already sprayed some what's called high build or sandable primer on there. I've even done a little bit of black Rust-Oleum painting, and I'm looking for areas that I know is going to get a lot of focal attention when you walk in the house. Some of these areas are completely hidden, but we're not going to focus too much on them. Some you're really going to see depending on where you're standing at in the house. So I happen to have some deep pitting on the I-beam over there on an area that's going to be a focal point, and a little bit of some deep scratches and stuff going on this landing platform. We're going to hit that with some Bondo here in just a second. So before we can get to painting, I have got to get this black coating off this oil. So I use lacquer thinner. You can pick this up at Lowe's or Home Depot. It works really well for removing that last of, look at this. This is the thick oil and nastiness that's going on there. Obviously, I can't paint over that. So I'll wipe this entire piece down since I know it's going to get a good coat of paint. Get all this oil off. It's going to take quite a while. I have to go over it a couple times. All right, I'll meet y'all back in a minute after I wipe this down. And we'll get to doing some body filler, some Bondo, and really try to get this smooth and looking good. So I finally broke down and got me some metal countersinks. I got a whole kit of all different sizes, so I can take some really thick wood screws like this with a concave head, countersink, and flush them down into an area like this that we're actually going to be physically stepping on. Well, they're jumping around a little. It could be the quality of the bit or the fact that I might have the wrong size. Looks like the next size up, this large one here, is the right one for this. Just take off a little at a time so I don't go too far until I get it close to flush. That is very close. I'm going to take a tiny little bit more off, and we should have that screw nice and flush. Now you're not gonna wind up stepping here or here. This is the only one that your foot maybe could come in contact with. So I'm gonna make 100% sure this one is nice and flush, and then we'll paint over everything real quick so it blends right in. All right, so I have a friend that's coming tomorrow to help me install this landing platform, and I need to cut out a section of trim and flooring because the post needs to rest on the floor itself. And one of y'all asked to see this process, especially once I put the full beam stairs in over there. It's gonna have a big plate that goes on the floor back here, and we're gonna need to cut the flooring out much the same way we're gonna do for this small area here. Because this is a floating floor with foam underneath, it's not going to give me good structural integrity. Plus, you don't want to pin a floating floor down. It needs to expand and contract and be able to do that. So what you need to do is cut the flooring out. But most importantly, we want metal making direct contact with the concrete itself. It also happens to be that there is a footer poured in the floor here all the way down the center of the house, because this is the only load-bearing wall in the house since we added dead weight to the attic and livened dead weight to the loft itself. So I know that I have 3 2x4s in the wall here. A wall that comes up here and has a 2x4 that butts this way, another one that butts this way, and I put a third one in here. The beauty of doing YouTube and recording me building the house is, well, I just went back and watched a video to make for sure that I did have 3 2x4s in the corner here like I had originally thought. And it's because of those 3 2x4s tied in that we know we're going to get great strength here tying our posts in the wall. And I know that I have to come over, it is 3 1/4 inches to where I need the center of this post to be. So I'm driving extremely long, 8-inch long, 1/2-inch lag bolts all the way in, because I have multiple 2x4s in here, and they're not flat all together. They're in all different angles, and I need to make sure I hit the most wood that I can. Difficult to explain that without showing you. No true way to show that without ripping the wall off, but trust me. So I'm having to be very exact with my measurements here and line the center of my post up with that, because the bolts are going directly through the center of the post. Now I can mark out my trim here, and we can cut and remove it. And I always save old blades with missing teeth, the ones that really need to go in the trash. And the reason I save those are my sheetrock blades, basically is what they turn into, because sheetrock will dull a blade. Or for an instance like this where I know I'm about to just basically melt through plastic essentially with all this friction I'm going to create, and then hit concrete underneath. It's inevitable it's going to happen. Just use an old blade right here with half missing teeth. This may be a slow process, but we'll get through it. And I'm gonna cut this out a little large anyways to allow expansion and contraction of the floor, and we'll come back and do a little piece of trim around this post. All right, that worked out awesome. Better than I was expecting. Oh, that worked out beautiful. Now my post will make contact with the concrete floor and slab, and more importantly, it'll be sitting on top of the 12 by 16 footer that we have down here, distributing the weight to that. Okay, well, I want to show this process because I've got a bigger group of guys coming in 2 days to help me lift the main stair section in, and I'm gonna record that, but I'm probably not gonna do much talking during that process because it's gonna be stressful and we're just gonna have a lot going on, and I'm gonna have to direct a few guys there. But I'm gonna cut the floor out the same way, and you're gonna see me mount concrete anchors in the floor over here behind me and actually tie the stair down permanently. I'm gonna go all the way to the, come on out this direction, we gotta flip it all over. Guys, okay, you can go ahead and put your end down. Okay, hang on, can you go around? I think that's it. Oh, come on. Actually, okay.
Not the slide. Whoa.
Hang on. Actually, may say the heck with the ladder right now. Pull it out of the way. Dad, can you come help them hold this? Yeah. All right.
No, we gotta slide some more.
Yep, hang on. Here. Tiffany, hand me that gray handle wrench right there. This one? Yeah.
Come on.
We'll get this way, come here.
Which way?
This way. We got some tractor equipment he's made. There we go. You tell him today.
Y'all got it? Hold on, man.
Don't get pitched in there, son. You go that way, you bunch.
Come on over to the wall, just a hair.
Well, all right, so first off, I'll admit, I completely forgot to hit record whenever we were bringing this in, but you get the point. 5 guys toted this in, relatively okay, although still extremely heavy. And then you got to see the rest right there. So this is bolted in with 6 half-inch bolts, 3 per side. And then I put in 1/2-inch concrete anchors down here, cut the floor out, left a gap around for expansion and contraction. That's very important for a floating floor. Plus, the last thing we want to do is bolt this down on top of a floor that has foam padding underneath. I mean, vinyl's kind of a plastic filling floor. I'm already going to be struggling with flex on a design like this because an I-beam gets its strength up and down, not side to side. So I want to make for sure this is on concrete as well to get a nice solid base and help take some flex out. Should we wind up with too much flex in this, I already have an idea how to take it out. We'll cross that road when we get there. Now, as far as this post goes, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8-inch long lag bolts put into the wall. They're embedded in 5 inches of wood that's in the wall, the way that I have framing done in there. It's a very strong corner wall right here. Up top behind this piece of wood, I have 3 more lag bolts going into my floor joist up there. And then on the very top edge, where that angle iron goes over, I have number 14, a very thick wood screw, 3 of those in there. So you're talking 11 different fasteners holding this to the wall. He took it upon himself to throw some 3D renderings at me, crunch some numbers on this, and make sure we had a safe design. And I'm talking about this because I had several people mention, please talk about this portion of it, how you got to where you're at. Because what you've got to keep in mind when you're building something like this is, not only is there hundreds of pounds there right now, when I add all the wood, I'm adding a few hundred more pounds, then there potentially may be 2 people on the stairs, and we may be carrying a couch or walking something heavy up there. Before you know it, in this section right here, I could have 1,500 or more pounds. And you want to make for sure that should you ever potentially hit that kind of a load, that it's being transferred in all different kinds of ways safely. The other thing we really had to take into consideration was the twist, the force that's being put this way on that landing platform because of this beam and all this weight pushing down. So the beam had to be mounted more toward the center underneath, not out here on the very edge like I was originally thinking I was going to do. And we're lagged in up here in several different areas to help take that twisting motion out. All right, so an issue I'm running into, and I kind of already knew this was going to happen, having just a center I-beam, and an I-beam is set up to design, well, a vertical up and down load on it, not side to side. That's just not where they're built for strength. And having a center beam in the middle, well, with long treads like this, you can actually see that I get significant flex. So if you don't walk dead in the middle of the stairs, well, the stairs kind of do a rocking motion back and forth. Already anticipating this, I've thought of a couple of ideas. One is a hidden fastener idea, although not as robust as my other exposed bracket idea. We're going to try it first. So all throughout this wall right here is studs. That's what the sheetrock is attached to. And at the end of these stair treads, I'm going to loosen, every other tread, or maybe 4 total. Drive one of these wood stakes into the stud, cut the end off, actually leave a decent amount of exposed, very stiff screw here. Remove the tread, obviously, drill a little hole in the end, and then push the tread back onto this screw that's firmly mounted into the sheetrock itself. You do that every so often. Well, now your floating stair design looks like it's not touching the wall, but it's actually attached in several different spots into the stud, and it will hopefully take some of the side-to-side motion out. Worst case scenario, I can take an L bracket, piece of angle iron steel, attached to the wall and attached to the bottom side of these treads in 2 or 3 spots, but you will actually see the angle iron if you look underneath doing that. So I want to try this first right here. See if we can just take a little bit of this flex out. All right, so here we are with a nice finished project. I think we can wrap the video up here. All that's left to do is a bunch of touch-up painting where like bolts got marred up and things like that. I'll take care of that, most likely off camera. But here's your completed look. Now you can see why I had to work so hard on sanding and smoothing the underside of the stairs and the landing platform, because so much is visible. And I spent a ton of extra time smoothing, priming, bondoing, and prepping all the metal work too to get a nice smooth finish. So let's give you a out in the open look here. And here everything is going up. And by the way, I should mention, staking the, I did 4 treads into the wall, made a dramatic difference. Now the stairs are very solid, and there's still a couple more treads that line up very well with studs in the wall. So I could stake a couple more, but right now it's just made a dramatic difference. So I'll be the first to admit, from downstairs looking up, it blends in well. From upstairs looking down, the lighter color wood does look a little off from the flooring, but hey, that is what it is. And this stuff's gonna continue to darken with time. You can see how much darker the ceiling is, because this has had several months to oxidize more than this lumber right here.